Hello, hello. Welcome to Addicted Cafe by Addicts for Addicts, all about addicts and the addicts family. This is episode 2, how to make the best of your relapse. And I am not talking about going all in, getting crazy.
Hell no.
That's not what we're talking about. We're going to talk today about, relapse in general and when it occurs, when it's most likely to occur. And also, how can we make the best of those moments where we learn from them, where we can use them as a tool to see and take research. It is research, right?
Yes.
To see how we got to that space, because it doesn't just happen, folks. There's a whole slew of things that trigger that. And so I do want to say that relapse doesn't have to be a part of recovery, doesn't have to be a part of your story, but it can be. These two folks here, Destry and me, have both had to play. Well, he had a little less relapse than me. He he got like a few things going on, and I just got like 10,000, 100,000 relapse. I can laugh about it now, but it was not funny at the time because I couldn't figure it out, and I was too stubborn to take the tools that were given to me. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I was too stubborn to take the tools that were given to me by so many people around me. I remember when someone was like, you need to shut up because you do not know how to stay clean. And I was like, well, that's true. So before we start, I do want to, and this is hard for me, is that relapse these days leads to death. I mean, our streets are stricken with synthetic drugs right now, where even the pills on the street are being pressed with fentanyl. Cocaine's being cut with fentanyl. Weed is being cut with fentanyl. And the amount of people that we lost last year, and we don't have the numbers for this year, are about over 20,000 more people than the year before. And I know that has to do with a lot that's been going on in the last couple of years. But again, this is why Destry and I are here, because we've lost so many people. We want to make sure that we're getting the information out there to the families of addicts, because it's helpful for you to know. Yes. And for addicts, because it's Russian roulette now more than ever. Nothing is exempt. No drug is exempt. Even just if you're taking some Molly, you get a pill, it could be pressed with fentanyl. It's one pill take your life. And, for the addict, just understand why your families are bugging out right now or upset with you or all of that. Like, having compassion for the whole crew is really, really important. And it was important for me to understand that even after I got clean, that my wife wasn't like, oh my God, you got clean, everything's better. And I'm sitting there like, I got clean. And I was like, you should be so proud of me. And my wife was beaten down from every time I relapsed and every time I left the house and didn't come home. And she's still healing and grieving, right, and healing. So
don't people, I mean, that's one thing you explained, like, really has to be talked about, because we get clean, we get all excited, we have all the serotonin and all this natural dopamine running through our system, and we're so proud of ourselves, and everybody just kind of looks at us like, yeah, okay. And then that is something that can lead someone to relapse if they don't truly understand where the family is coming from, because they just watched us almost kill ourselves 20 million times. Like, I remember, like, I ended up having to stay with my dad for a while at 30 years old. I mean, the shame in that in me was just great. And he'd be waiting up late at night, waiting for me to come home, hoping I didn't kill myself, because he was also an addict. So putting our families through that and then getting clean and expect them to be like super happy for us. I mean, we got to remember where they're coming from and really feel into their compassion and their love. And we have to actually like prove ourselves again. Because, I mean, we all know half the shit we did when we were using, stealing, doing all the crazy shit, I mean, I stole from my stepmom. I would never do that. But, I mean, the things we put our family through, that's why this is important for the family too, because it also helps them teach how to react to the addict. Because that's also an important, the relationship between the family who's dealing with the addict and the addict on the other side, because we can misconstrue our emotions and everything, especially when the addict first gets clean.
I love this, Destry. It's like, when you look at a 12-step program, in the steps, the making amends is later on, because there's so much work that needs to be done within the addict to heal and to be with themselves and to get the support that they need and the love that they need from other addicts or people that really understand. And it might not be the time when they first relapse to have these conversations about how much, and this is for the family of addicts, that they hurt you, or the loved one of an addict. Maybe that's not the time to have that conversation or to rip into them when they're first getting up. Doesn't mean you need to stuff that and not have that conversation. That conversation actually needs to happen at some point. Right. But it's really about, setting the boundaries and setting up everyone up to win, where it's like that can come later, but let's get you cleaned up. Let's do triage. This is like, damage control. Relapses can be just damage control, like where you can shift right out of it. Doesn't need to be prolonged. We don't need to batter the addict in that moment when they're getting up, even though I'm sure what Destry said, everything my wife's ever bought me as a gift, I pawned, including my wedding band, who had like a precious stone that it came from her family. I mean, I've robbed my parents, and all the other things that happen on the streets when you're really suffering and you need that next hit. And so this is some good stuff that's coming out. We went off script, man. No, we don't even.
But it's all about the relapse.
Yeah.
Because every time I remember I'd relapse, I'd come home, I'd expect like a big fucking party or something. Like, oh, he got clean again for like 2 days, but we can't. It's hard as the addict not to expect that, because we're proud of ourselves. Again, we're feeling good. But, everybody always tells us, fill your horses, you're not quite there yet. You're not out of the woodwork. And it can take years. I mean, I've seen people take like 5, 7, 8 years to kind of get out of the woodwork of saying, I mean, a lot of people don't like to say they'll never relapse, but that's where I came to a point is saying relapse is no longer an option for me. Otherwise, it just means death. So I have to take that option off the table. And I can't expect everybody in their living soul to be proud of me because I stayed clean all the time. I have to be proud of myself, because I remember the struggles. And I think we were talking before we hopped on, like I was so scared of relapse. I stayed in rehab for 9 months. I volunteered to stay because of the fear of using again or going back home. I went to rehab states and states away, all the way in Tennessee. And I was scared to go home. I was like, I can't go home. I was proud of the people who got clean where they lived. Because I don't know if I could have ever done that, because I never had to.
Yeah, I hear that, man. I had to lock myself away a couple of times where they were like, well, this is for people that don't go to jail. They put them in here. And I was like, yeah, that's where you're going to put me. I was like, lock me up and give me like boot camp. And, I stayed clean a very short amount of time when I left after the year. And then I relapsed again because there was a lot of things and pain inside of me. And so I want to talk about why we relapse. And, the first thing I want to say is that a lot of addicts have been through traumas. There was traumas I lived through when I was younger that I didn't remember until I got older. And thank God I didn't remember, because I might not be here. And I was strong enough to remember. Some of you have been sexually abused, physically abused, your parents divorced, even being adopted. You don't realize sometimes, the feeling of abandonment or whatever goes on can cause someone to want to use a substance or something, porn, whatever it is, to get out of themselves. Or for some of us, I was always like, I was feeling numb because I was so stricken with so much pain that I wanted to feel something. Right? So I do like coke or crack, just to feel anything, anything other than what I was feeling. And so I know Destry, both of us, our story is we've had traumas, Destry's in the military. I mean, you could talk about that a little bit, but I needed to begin to unravel this, but I had compacted it so deep down there and was so afraid to open what I thought would be, this ravenous, rageful, which it was, this ravenous, rageful emotions and pain that I couldn't live through. But I started to do that. And, it's interesting when we talk about energy is so merciful. It's not going to give you more than you can handle, because your body can only handle so much. And so it's going to give you the consciousness of certain things that happen to you at the time that it needs to be given to you, so that you can begin to heal it. It doesn't have to all be healed at the same time. It is layered. It's a fucking layered cake. It's like a big layer, it's like,
or Shrek would say it's an onion.
It is an onion, but by beginning to really get honest with yourself about what happened to you, and also what you did to you. and then get honest about what you did to others, which is, this is layers of pain and grief. And I found ways to do that, to start to heal that, because, you know, as soon as I started feeling a wound that wasn't healed in me, I wanted to fucking feed it with alcohol, drugs, or a woman. Like, I was just, I just couldn't. And because I did it so many times, I trained myself to do it. Your brain is so perfect. It trains itself. It's like, I'm sunning out, have a drink. And you just, it's like, you know, and we talked about this, I think, in episode 1, but, you know, that's the biggest thing, is making sure that you are doing the work to take care of those places. I wanted to give you an opportunity to chat if you want to say something. To chat.
To chat.
Or do you just want to see, I wore my cock socks.
Woo!
Ooh, my lucky cock socks. I match you. Ooh.
He mentioned the military. I got my military shirt on today. But yeah, like all that trauma that we pour inside of us, it's like that memory. It's like that muscle memory that just like, if this happens, we got to use to handle it. That's the way our brain programmed us, or we programmed the brain, not our brain programmed us, the other way around. But I mean, coming to those different steps, like you said, like if we go to rehab or any way we decide we need to get clean, if we are not being honest with ourselves, we are already setting ourselves up for failure. Because I always said, especially in the beginning, reservations is the golden ticket to use. It's like Willy Wonka's golden ticket. If you have a reservation in your head that said, if this happens, I'm gonna use, it's gonna happen. I remember the second time I came out of rehab. Sorry, I had to think. But I had a reservation, and it's a normal one, but it's like, wonder if someone I love dearly dies. What do? No one taught me how to handle that. Right. And then my girlfriend, I was the last one to see her alive. I was there that night. The next morning, I leave her house. 10 minutes later, I get a phone call. She's dead. She overdosed. Now, in my head, I'm like, what could I have done? Could I have gone through her shit and stolen her drugs from her? What could I have done? Because I was 10 months clean at the time. And I'm like freaking out. I'm emotional. And I think I lasted about 3 weeks of emotional pain that I just could not figure out how to handle before I went on like a 4-day bender and came back on Mother's Day with flowers for my mom. You know, because that's what we do, right? I wanted to pretend I didn't even use again. So I had to mask it. And then I went into such a, like we said, every relapse is worse than the last. I went into such a dark hole because of this. And I didn't know how to handle it, but, you know, like Source, the all and everything, you know, put me back into that situation. So, and got me through it, even though I OD'd that time a couple times, to go back into rehab and really figure it out. But that time, I don't know what changed that time, but I literally drove through with anger. I was so mad at myself. I was mad at everybody else. I was mad at the world. I was so mad. The counselors at the rehab, you know, I'm a frequent flyer, they called me. And I came in so much, they just kind of this time let me deal with it and figure it out on my own, because I was so angry. And that was probably one of the best things they could have done, is let me sit there and figure it out, not necessarily work my own program, but figure out how to work myself into the program. Because, I mean, every time I relapsed, it just got darker and darker. And that's one thing I do give addicts credit for. We are one of the few people that have witnessed our true darkness and made it back into the light. And that's where light workers do their best work, is in the darkness. And we actually witnessed our own darkness, our true darkness, which, and we did so much shadow work doing that, coming out and all these relapses, that we can't, there was always a lesson in it, no matter what happened. Always a lesson.
Oh man, all right, we're definitely took a left. So we're going to stay on that left, and we going to stay on that street. We're going to keep going. Cause that was just like, I got the chills, and it's so true. It's like, you know, I used to fight with myself, cause I'm like, why didn't I get it the first time? I mean, I was so psyched the first time I went to rehab. I mean, I knew what they were saying was real. I saw people in the room that told me that they had 30 years clean and they looked great and they were different and they had a light shining. And I was like, what the fuck is that? You know, and I knew though by seeing it, I witnessed something that I hadn't seen on the streets while I was getting high. And so I knew it was possible. I think even your consciousness, when you see it, and that's what's beautiful about programs, is that, you know, you do see people healed and you see them shiny as hell. And I didn't understand though what it was going to take me. And my soul, my soul came to go to some of the darkest places that anyone could go to. In places I can't even explain to you or express to you what I've seen in the energetic fields of the hell realms I went into while using. What's amazing about that is that as we get through them, so for all of you that have gotten through those moments, you have laid a path for somebody before you. Just like I said, when we see something, we're not only seeing and witnessing the light in someone, we're experiencing the energy and transference of codes that they have possessed by getting 30 years or 5 years or even a fucking day. Because at this point, like, you know, when Destry was talking, we were talking about families. For 2 days for family is shit. You're gonna tell me you have 2 days after you come off of heroin. I'm gonna honor that, right? It's very different than when you see someone outside looking in that doesn't totally understand. But when it's me going, oh my God, and you have another breath, another day, your heart is still beating, you have a chance, right? And so understanding that I understand that my soul came to do this thing called addiction. And this isn't my first rodeo in lifetime that I've done this, because this is one of the most critical and disgusting of all the things that we battle with. It is anti-life. We are rejecting life by using. We are stepping away from the light by putting something in our body to not feel. Everything is about experience. Love is expression and experiencing. And when we stop that, we cut off the light and we cut off the life. And for many of you, you are on the biggest research project ever to help us remove ourselves from this planet's grids, addiction grids that have been here from the beginning of when duality started and darkness hit this planet. It was awesome because it was awesome. It was like, oh, you think you need God? Why don't you just try this? You're going to feel really good. I remember the first time I did heroin. Somebody told me it's going to feel like an orgasm in heaven. It fucking did. Right? You're just like, I just met God. You do meth. You're like, I met God.
You're like, what happened?
But you didn't.
No, it's false. It's a false God.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just take a sip of water to that. I couldn't have more coffee today. You know, like we don't want to do that, but big love to you all.
Oh, yes.
Wow. It's such a, wow. It's just really powerful. I hope you guys, if you're listening and, you want to leave some comments if this resonates with you, it's really important. If you have family members that you need to share this with because of what we said in the beginning, please do.
Oh, yeah.
It's very important. And if you are the family of the addict and you want to send this to your addict kid or spouse and they're still using it, like give them a little tap. They might listen to me and Destry and I, right? It's possible, right? So I do want to move along and talk about the physiology that happens when we're trying to get clean, coming out of just, you know, detox, for instance. This is a time where most people relapse, right? For heroin, I mean, Xanax and alcohol, like you need to go to a hospital to detox off of those things. Yes. You could die. You can have a grand mal seizure and die. Heroin is rough, but you could do it on your own. But once those couple days go through, depending on what your opiate you're on, your body starts craving the substance because it's leaving, and your neurotransmitters that you have been pounding with this drug, it's blasting out all these hormones, are not working. Because they're not working, your body's going, there's Mayday, I need to feel better, I need to put this back in because it's not producing anything. And then you put it back in and it produces all those hormones and blasts it. And as you're doing that, it's depleting the neuro, like the receptors over and over, where it damages them. So when you see someone get clean and they're like, I've been a year clean and I don't feel good, that is a post-acute withdrawal symptoms. You're having symptoms still because your body is healing. Yeah. And this first year is hard. This is like relapse zone. Like, you know, this is where you got to stay plugged in. This is where you got to have a program, some kind of program, some spiritual program. You gotta like fucking like pray. Like I remember, like I knew that this form at the moment that I started getting clean was not enough to keep me clean because it never worked before. I knew that I needed people. I knew that I needed support. I knew that I needed whatever, connection I had with spirituality. It doesn't have to be God. It can be anything, but it had to be bigger than myself. And I had to have a tiny bit of faith that possibly that power would help me. And the way I know, the way energy works, the power of this planet and of God and of the universe or source or whatever you want to call it is always there to serve you. And you may not feel that yet. And you may say, yeah, but my life, you don't know my life, Nick, and this happened and this happened and this happened. And it's never been. Well, it can be now.
I mean, yeah, before I got into this like spiritual work and this coaching business and doing this podcast with you in the beginning, I mean, I didn't know what to believe in anymore. Because in my head, it was like, what could let me go through this? Because it took me years to realize that I was actually on mission. I had to help people, right? Because this is such a big mission thing to hold as you're an addict and to help people through. It may just be the next person on the street that you talk to that decides to open up to you about their issues. We've all witnessed that and how weird it is, but there's a reason for that. That person felt your frequency and felt okay to open up to you. And sometimes it doesn't even matter what we have to say or say anything at all. They just need somebody to listen. And when I first came in and got clean, my higher power was literally the rooms, because that's all I knew. That's all I was taught, but it worked for a time. And we talk about that first year is critical, because when we get to that first year, I've seen so many people die and relapse. They get to that year. I even knew people with the reservation. If I get that 1 year chip, I'll use one more time and that will be it. And it's like, now in my head, like back then, I'd be like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. Yes. Can I join you? Yes. One more time, that one last time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now it seems like it's ludicrous. Like, why would I do that? But we always hold that reservation or that beautiful moment of that one last time, because we lost the word I was looking for. It doesn't matter. But we think that one last time is going to be so beautiful because we held the drugs and everything to this standard to make our lives better. So once we stop looking at the drugs as a standard and bring it down and look at ourselves above the drugs and we're above everything else, relapse becomes less of an option.
Yeah. Because
I remember I used to think, oh, that one last time or that one last drink, or I'm going to use heroin one last time and it'll be beautiful because I've been clean for so long and the effects will be great. It'll be like, oh, that, because we're always looking for that first hit again. And I guarantee you, if you're watching this, you'll never find it. Because we really got to search in here. I mean, that's so cliche, but it's true. It's all in here. And we have to re-find it and rewire it and rekindle everything that we have. Because we've lost it all to this giving up our sovereignty to these drugs. I mean, it literally took our power away.
Absolutely. Oh man, it's good stuff. So yeah, I was just thinking about how two of the offenders of staying clean for the addict in the beginning, when the drug is a tool, right? If you don't understand this, like, you're upset, you use it to make yourself feel better. I mean, even though you might be killing yourself, you still, for the moment, your brain's going, I feel better, right? My anxiety went away, my mind stopped. I don't have to deal with my life. Like, I get to just numb the fuck out. Like, no one I don't care. Like, you're using it as a tool. I can't deal with my emotions. I use it. I can't deal with my mind. I can't deal with my life. I use it. Tool. So what happens with the two offenders of the addict is success. And you're like, wait, success? Yes, success and failure. And you will go to the greatest tool that you know. You will go to that tool when shit hits the fan, when you've hit your bottom or something really bad happens, or all of a sudden you get a promotion and you're like, oh my God, you're flipping out, because up level is a real friggin' thing for everyone, not just the addict. And so you'll go down to the lowest common denominator of tools that you have, the one that you've used most. That's what you're going to use. You're going to use it. You're going to use someone or something, or, you're going to do that until until you replace it with something else. And that becomes the dominating force. Right? The preparation has to happen in the program, like I'm meaning like a 12-step program, or if you are connected with a support group, that's a spiritual group, or whatever you're doing, if you're doing the steps with a sponsor, whatever that is, it needs to be the preparation, because when the success or the failure hits, that stuff needs to play. That needs to come into play, I should say.
Yes.
Because if it's not there and set in motion, and there isn't that phone call that you can make where you set yourself up when you feel like using that, you get to talk to someone, or you talk to someone, you tell them, I don't know how to do this. I just got a promotion. I feel like a piece of shit. Like I don't deserve it. If that's not put into place, that other voice, the monster, right? Your addiction will be very, very loud, and it is going to talk to you, and it is going to lie to you, and it is going to tell you that this is the only way and that this is the best way because you don't have another fucking way, and you need to make another fucking way.
Yes.
And Destry and I have made our other fucking way big as shit. Let me explain that. So many fucking tools. So many tools. The things that I have done for myself, self-development starts with 3D shit. My health, working out, taking vitamins, right? Connection with people, talking with people, making sure I have support. Then I got some therapy, right? Where we're just talking about my feelings and I'm trying to identify why I'm feeling that way, right? Still kind of, and then we start going up into, we're going into energy. We're going into inner child work where we get to travel with our fourth dimensional mind and go back to the past and clean that shit up and fucking go back to the little kid that got beat up or that little kid that got abused and tell them it's going to be okay. And then you're in that realm, and then it goes higher where you're doing work in higher dimensions. And we're just going to touch on this a little. I have guests that are coming on. We're going to go down the rabbit hole together. But when you start going into your past lives and your Akashic records, which is just the memory of all the lives you've ever had, where your soul has been, then you start to understand yourself at another level, right? And then we learn universal principles, me and Destry. I know, because we was reading the same shit. Some Hermetic principles, right? The principles of this friggin' world. Like, there are rules on planet Earth, how it works, how your mind is controlling your whole reality. And we're learning these things. So we set ourselves up in all these areas. I talked about 3D dimensional stuff all the way up into like, you know, higher dimensional stuff, like energy, frequency, soul level things, to where I am making sure that this being is taken care of in all, because we're multidimensional. We exist in so many different realms. And again, I'm just going to start to layer these seeds right now because we're going to go deeper into that. But we are these beings, and we've come here to do more and to experience more and to understand these things in a human body. And I'm sweating, because that was hot. Woo!
That was beautiful. That book you talk about, it's actually like, it's right here next to me, actually.
Throw it up. Throw it up, man.
And if you want to know about the laws of the universe.
And I'm going to say one thing to some of you that think that this book is evil. I'm going to say it right now, because I've already heard some voices, is that those principles are true. They're true principles. Doesn't mean that a soul can't take those principles and do evil shit with them. Right. Doesn't make the principles evil. And I stand by that.
It's a good thing to stand by.
Stand by it.
But well, let's go back to relapse for a second, because something just popped in my head, right? And we didn't really hit on it yet, and I know we wanted to hit on it. When we get clean, like we always think of the relapse of using our drug of choice, right? Which some people are like, oh, I just drank, I didn't relapse, or I used coke, not heroin, I didn't relapse. But it's all a relapse, if you want to think of it that way. In my mind, it is kind of. And not kind of, it is. But when we dig deeper, a lot of people, when they get clean, they start digging into, like, a lot of us start to eat a lot of sugar. So now we're relapsing on food. And now, like you said, keep our bodies healthy. Because if our bodies are healthy, we feel better. Because then we get addicted to the sugar, and then we're craving sugar all the time. Or a lot of people, like, they go to porn and they just sit there and go to porn. I mean, that's a whole new level of energetic shit that we can't even get into right now. What happens when you watch a lot of porn? I mean, like we said, the drugs desensitize you, porn desensitizes you. in more ways than one. And well, even sex, like people will just start using sex instead. Or like I was a love addict. I had to constantly be in a relationship to make myself feel better because I felt wanted, because I didn't know how to want myself because the drugs wanted me. You know what I mean? The drugs wanted me, so I was cool.
I just saw you, Destry, going, oh, hey.
Hey.
Do you want to get me? I was talking about drugs, y'all. I hope they don't flag this.
But yeah, but you know what I mean. And I just always
talking about drugs. You don't take that. It wasn't that naughty. It sounded really bad, but
and so that's even another lesson to learn on how to be alone. Because we learn so much when we're alone about ourselves. And when after relapse, the beginning of it, I mean, we just have to really be kind of selfish in a way to try to take care of ourselves and refigure out who we are.
Yeah, man. Because
if we keep trying to focus on everything else and putting our energy everywhere else, when we forgot to even how to harness our own energy, we're never ever going to figure it out.
Absolutely. And you can hear my Sophie in the background, hopefully not, but you probably hear her barking. So I apologize for that. I definitely feel that, man. Thank you so much for that. Oh shit. So like, to wrap this up, and we're not wrapping it up quite yet, but the last thing that is really important to talk about is, and this is what the title of the whole video was like, how do you make the best of the relapse? Right? So some of you lose your time and you have so much shame. So when Destry was talking about like, a relapse is a relapse, right? And sometimes we don't want to say relapse because we don't want to lose the time. I'm going to tell you right now, throw your fucking time. Listen, it's important, right? To congratulate yourself on your fucking time. It's huge. At the same time, if you relapse, you got to throw the shame away about the time, because at the end of the day, all we have is today. And not only do we have today, it's like, how do we show up in these days? You could have 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. You could be miserable as shit. Does it really matter? Right? We're talking about having days where you're feeling peace, having days where you feel held, having days where you're connecting so deeply with the energies that be your source that you fucking get high off of life. Like talking about like expanding your mind in a way where it blows your mind up, not literally, but allows for you to enjoy. And so how can we take the relapse and make the best of it? And I want to share a story, and it might be a little TMI for the dudes, but I'll just say this, that before my period, my hormones were doing something in the past that I didn't know that they were doing. And every 10 or 9 days before my period, I would relapse, and it was like clockwork. And I remember when I first met Dove, my wife, she started telling me this, but I wasn't ready to hear that. I was just like, I shouldn't know what she's talking about. She's so psychic, but I just wasn't ready to hear it. I just wanted to use. I didn't want you to give me the answer because I still wanted to use. I wasn't ready to stop. And then as time went on, I just kind of didn't think about it. And I struggled for so many years finding out that I have something called PMDD, where 10 days before, they literally textbook tells you your body's going to crave alcohol. You may be an addict or not. You're going to crave alcohol before your period. It's part of the symptoms. And I'm just like, that information was really important after my relapse, those 10 days before, where I could identify the problem, where I was like, holy shit, this is a real thing, where like 10 days before this happens, I feel like a different human. For many of you women, your hormones are jacked up from using drugs. Get clean, and then this happens to you. And I want to say this to you to honor you, because everybody be like, so you start bringing up hormones, I'm like, girl, you crazy. I don't know about testosterone because I don't have manly testosterone, but like, so I don't know, I can't talk about man hormones, but I can talk about female hormones, where this stuff was wrecking my existence. Am I still dealing with it? Absolutely. Am I still finding ways to heal my body and cortisol levels, my stress hormones, so that I can balance my hormones? Yes. Do I track my period now and know when I'm going to start to have the anxiety and I get muscle cramps and I get all these symptoms and I know what it is and I can call it out and there's nothing wrong with me. It's just that that's what I am. It took me a long time to start to see the pattern, right? There was times where one thing would get triggered with my wife where I felt a little bit of my abandonment wound. She wasn't abandoning me. She just wasn't paying attention. And I would go into abandonment because I was abandoned in certain areas of my life. And it would trigger me to want to go use because I used to use because of my abandonment issues. And I would relapse and go back and go, damn, that triggered something in me. And I picked up. Or I stopped working my program the last like month or two. I stopped connecting. I stopped praying. I stopped doing this. I stopped doing the things at work. So I picked up. And then I'm like, I got to fucking go back to those things. That's information. Everything that happened before you picked up, that's research for you. Take a note. Take 2 or 3. Take some notes. And the last thing I say, I'm gonna let Destry, rip into this, is that I had to learn to drop the shame. I want to do a whole video with Destry on shame, but like I had to drop it. You know what I mean? I've relapsed so many times, so many times. So like I can't even tell you how many times. And having to see my wife's face, and having to see my parents' face, and having to hear people what they had to say, and having to hear people in the program. And like I just over and over, and I just kept getting up. I got up anyways because I want to be here. And I did it anyways, and I got up and I learned to use it in a way that was going to benefit me.
Yes. I mean, every relapse I had so much shame to go back into the rooms. I mean, I did crazy things during my relapses where, like, I'll even admit it. I chaired a meeting in NA high as hell because I was too scared to admit I even relapsed. Knowing everybody in that room knew I relapsed. I was just making a fool of myself. Like she said, not taking the notes on what was going on and not being, like we said before, not being honest with myself of what was actually happening inside me. I mean, it took me a while to admit the relapse, and I was still, in a way, I'm proud of myself now that I kept going to the rooms and I kept going somewhere where people actually cared. They didn't call me out to embarrass me, which I had to see that. And I did see that, thankfully, that people weren't going to call me out to embarrass me, regardless if I was embarrassing myself. And, but I took that embarrassment as a lesson because, I was just trying to keep face, knowing that I was just out of this world, not doing anything right. Trying to chair meetings high, trying to do all this clean stuff high. I was trying to be clean while I was high. It wasn't working, obviously.
I've never chaired a meeting high.
But that is something I've came to terms with,
Yeah.
that I did it. And when I talked about it, both of my sponsors have told me they did the same thing.
So powerful.
Both of the sponsors I used in NA at the time, both admitted that they have done the same thing when they relapsed. They chaired meetings high. They made the coffee. They were there.
Yeah.
And they were talking. I remember when I first got clean too, and you got to watch out for this. I would talk the best game.
Yeah.
I was the golden child of getting clean. The last time I got clean, I'm still clean. Not the last time I got clean, but the last time I went in, like I said, I was angry. I wasn't trying to do like all the foundational stuff. I was actually literally trying to figure myself out this time. I wasn't spitting the book. I've always hated that about the rooms a lot, is when people they just read literature. It's like going to church and they just read literature to you the whole time without actually giving you life experience. Because I had the experience and I was learning from the experience, and I started taking notes on what I actually had to do this time, or else I was just going to keep ending up in the same place or worse. Came to death many times and just figuring it out. And once I stopped trying to be the golden child of being clean, make everybody proud of me, I needed that praise. Once I stopped doing that, I actually got clean.
I get that, man.
Once I just literally sat in my own shit and just sat there in the darkness trying to figure out what the fuck was going on, I finally started to figure something out. And some people were like, oh, you got to spit this, you got to do this, you got to do this. I was like, you got to sit in your own shit and figure it out. And eventually, or right off the bat, you might not realize it, but there's a bunch of people sitting there with you.
Yeah.
and you're not alone.
Yeah. When you're sitting in your shit for so long, it starts smelling like shit. But then you sit in your shit and then you start thinking about things and you start like and then all of a sudden you're like, oh damn, it's like shit. Like, yep. I used to say I built shit castles, a lot of shit castles. I did a really good job at it. I was just like planning it, and then
Yeah.
you know, I was like, look at what but it was so bad. It was so bad that I was like, if I could do that, and my dad instilled this in me. He's like, Nick, if you could fuck up that bad, he was like, you're so good at fucking up. He's like, if you could do it that bad, he was like, you could flip it and be so amazing. And it was true. You know, and when you were talking earlier about anger that was in you, to get clean, like it propelled you. It was like, you know, anger in a lot of ways is connected to passion. You know, it comes from a place of hurt, but it's also frustration. And when we have healthy guilt, it's not shame. Shame is when we beat ourselves up. Guilt is like, damn, that sucked. That did not feel good. And owning it, right? Destry just talked about owning it. When we take that and then we get a little bit of anger, like, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I don't want to do that. It propels us into a new energy where it gives the possibility. And then shame will just drop you into no possibility at all. Because then we go into victim. And I know all about victim. I used to be a victim. Everything was happening to me. You know, I didn't have any part. If you went through what I went through, which was true, it was bad shit. But then you get to be an adult. And, you know, I do want to say that there are some people that have gone through so much and have done so many bad things to themselves. It's really hard for them to come back from. I've seen it, and I've seen them not live. And I've been with them before they died. And, you know, and I saw it. I really understood that. And and I didn't, you know, my first feeling was this sadness, but then I didn't feel the sadness anymore because I want to honor souls where they are. Like, honor someone for experiencing so much darkness that you can't come back from it. That's information. It doesn't feel good for the family. It doesn't feel good to watch, but it is a part of life. And if you do have that light in you still, that little bit of fire, that little bit of passion, like, everything is possible. You just believe a tiny bit, no matter how many times you fell down. If you believe that you could get up one more time, you can, you know. And this is an important video. This is so important. And I just, I don't know if you wanted to say anything else, but I would love for you to tell people, because we didn't last time, where they could find you. I'll put it in the, you know, above, but I just wanted to see where can we find you, Destry?
You can find me on YouTube at Nights of Light is my YouTube channel, which I talk about a lot of other things with addiction, the divine masculine, and paradigm shifting. And I came into that a lot because of addiction. It's all about shifting the paradigm of your reality and shifting into a clean reality. And I mean, we have to shift so much on a constant basis to keep ourselves moving. And you can also find me on Instagram at nights.of.light. And of course, my Facebook is just Destry Rich. You can also find me there if you need to contact me.
Yeah, I'll make sure I put all these links. And, you know, for me, I work with my wife with Twin Flame Revolution. We put out all different kinds of content, not just about twin flames, but about entrepreneurship and couple stuff. And obviously, you can find me on Instagram, Nicole Peretti, and TikTok, and where I'm playing everywhere. I'm just bouncing around. Part of my self-expression is to be on camera and to be with you guys and to drop what I can and serve in the way that I can. And that's the last thing I want to say. And Destry's going to tell me that this is correct, is that no matter what the relapse is. And so I want to honor Destry for showing up to a meeting high, because no matter what, you could serve. No matter what, you can serve. And if you serve after a relapse, if you get back up and serve, even if you're still fucking high, but you serve, there's something in that changes you. There's something getting out of yourself to give to some other human that gets us out of this and puts us into this. And when we go into heart center and start giving, then all things are possible in that energy. That energy is love. And when you're in that energy, that frequency, it's such a high frequency, it can change anything. So we good? You got anything left? Because we gonna bounce.
Oh, we good, baby. We good. That was great. Right. So much love.
All right. Episode 2 is done.
Yes.
Bye, y'all.
Love y'all.